Shed season, it's finally here. Bow season has just ended, and we had a great year. One of those banner years where I was able to capitalize on my #1 buck, and that was absolutely amazing. One of those crazy hunts. I ended up shooting him 1.5 miles away from where I normally see him, and then I got one on the ground. One of my favorite little ground and pound setups. But here we are. It's shed season. Shed season is the best season. It's time to get out and start chasing hunting permission, chasing next year's target, and just like last year, I start my season right back in the swamp. And what I'm doing today is heading out. It's frozen, there's snow, hitting the high ground. And any of these little islands out here in the middle of this swamp always produce beds. They find it, even when there's snow and water and everything. Bedding right there on the south side of a little hump where the trees are growing. So what I'm doing is basically hitting my favorite little territory first. I was able to lock up permission to shed hunt a big portion of it that I haven't asked to hunt yet, but this is a new relationship that I got actually through snow removal, and it could wind up being really good because I'm standing on his property and there's a lot of bucks out here, and there's a big one out here. I've seen them before, kind of crossing the road over the last couple years, so we're out looking for him, a few others. But what I'm going to do in this little scouting mission, really it is a scouting mission. I don't expect to find a lot of sheds today. It still is relatively early here in January, but what I'm looking for is signs, bedding, and food. When it comes to shed hunting, I like to get out and find where they're at, and when there's a lot of snow on the ground, they will stay pretty condensed into smaller areas, and those are the areas that I'm looking for. So here's something right away. Red twig dogwood. You can see here, I was just basically following one set of deer tracks, and when it gets by this red twig, it takes a bite. I don't know if it knew that the thing was here or if it could smell it, but they do spend a lot of time in the winter browsing on red twig dogwood. They absolutely love it, and there's a lot of it in the swamps. Looks like the deer are spending a lot more time in the woods, especially the heavy, thick stuff. And with all this snow cover, seems like they're bedding all over in here. Then they're turning around and bedding or eating the melted ground underneath their bed. So they're pulling up a lot of stuff. But I do like to hit the hardwoods areas first this time of year, because if they have dropped in here, the squirrels tend to get to them a little quicker. Especially when there's just a couple points sticking out of the snow. Squirrels find those and eat them flush. Well, as I was looking at that bed, coming across this little rise, heading north, first shed of the year. First shed, and it's a 1-pointer. Got a little spiker. All right, we're officially on the board. 2024 shed season. All right, well, this is super weird. I got a deer here. I don't know if it's dead or alive. Let's check this out. It's kind of crazy. Wow, looks like it just died. I think it's dead. Yeah, it's dead. It's like it just froze in place. Nothing seems to be really wrong with it. I'm not anywhere near a road. Must have died yesterday or last night. But yeah, wow. Winter's tough on these deer. Don't like seeing that. Looks totally healthy. Looks like a last year's fawn maybe. Frozen to death, dead. That's too bad. Kind of caught me off guard when I was coming around this little spot. I was seeing beds all over the place. I'm like, wow, that deer's really let me get close. But yeah, deader than a doornail. I'd flip it over and see if there's an arrow in it. Only a couple weeks out of. Oh, bleeding somehow or another. Never seen that before. I don't know. Not hit by a car. There's no roads anywhere near here. Oh well. Well, day 2 of shed hunting here in northern Illinois. You know, after finding that dead doe out on that property, I started to become a little concerned. So I figured what I'd do today was come and check the main farm. I haven't been out here since I shot my buck on November 9th because we have a 1 buck policy out here with a bunch of the friends that I split the lease with. And I purposely planted a lot of late season food, turnips, radishes, some soybeans, and then I planted some sunflowers. And typically when I find dead deer in the winter from winter kill, they're normally relatively close to some of the food sources. So I figured I'd go around and hit some of the food plots and just see what's happening over there. If they are, you know, hitting the late season food, whether it's the radishes or the turnips. I've also got a lot of fruit trees around here, big crab apples and apple trees. So I'm gonna go around and hit all these little food sources. Obviously I wanna find sheds. I don't wanna find dead deer, but it is something that happens in the winter. And if I do find a lot of them, I'm probably gonna wind up reporting it because we are CWD County and there's a lot of sharpshooting going on in the area. So, you know, I might as well report it because if we lose a quarter of our deer herd just from the winter kill, and then we have a year of sharpshooting on top of it, that's gonna hurt for years to come. But yeah, there's just very low deer numbers in this area in general. You know, I'm probably in about a 450 acre square, and I believe there's probably only about 30 plus deer that live in here, maybe 35 deer, period. And there's really only 1 big buck that I know of that's 4 years old. Everything else is younger, and yeah, there's just not a lot of deer out here. So the sheds that I am looking for is the Big 8. Big 8 that's pretty much been a real homebody on this piece of property over the years. I've got a shed from last year. He blew up into like 150-inch, beautiful, just big frame 8-pointer. So we're gonna look for him, maybe some other ones, but really my focus at this point is to hopefully not find dead deer. And with snow cover and a big coyote population, deer are pretty easy to find this time of the year. It typically looks like a murder scene. This was purple top turnips, and the purple tops are down under the water, which is not good, but you could see the deer actually pawing up at one point before it flooded. And why I put it here was a bunch of honey locust trees out on the outside, and makes for a great winter combo. Green, turnips, and seed pods. But the deer definitely were bedding very close. Like I was saying before, when deer are super hungry and it's super cold, they'll bed super close to the food source, which is what I've got here. Bed, 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 beds. So what I've got going on is basically the deer bedding right next to the food source. And this is where they were spending some time. Darn it. Not a lot they can do when it's foot underwater. So these are the locust pods. The deer cleaning them up as fast as they fall to the ground. So on windy days, well, this is very encouraging. Deer still hitting the clover, and where I've got the radishes planted, definitely looks like they've been spending some time in there. Hopefully there's been a couple bucks in here, because sheds should be relatively easy to find if they're in here. Well, it looks like they're eating those radishes right down to the ground, which is what I like to see. So big radish, little radish, all radishes, they seem to really be eating them. This is kind of what they look like. Ooh, oh, here's one. Just a little guy, but they seem to be eating them like crazy. You know, once we get snow cover on these, they tend to really put the hurting on them, which is what I wanted to do. You know, being here in Illinois, we're not allowed to supplemental feed at all. I kind of wish we would change that law post-season, just because these deer live in some of the most brutal conditions around. So you better plant food plots if you want to keep your deer herd around. And looks like it's working here, and I haven't had any signs of dead ones yet. So let's keep moving on. Hopefully we can find a couple sheds. Yeah! All right. Got the first big side of the year on the home farm. I think it's him. I think it's the big 8. I literally just got done saying this is the place where he likes to spend a lot of his time. I popped out past that locust tree. Here he is, baby. Check this out. Oh yeah, it's our #1 target deer. Deer we call the big 8. He's such a cool deer too. He's a 4-year-old this year, and gosh, I believe that's him. Yeah, it's him. He's a 4-year-old this year. Great mass. He's going to be the big buck in here next year. We have this genetic around here that's just a giant mainframe 4x4. I bet he shed his horn last night, shaking in the rain. It's literally laying on the snow. I mean, it's barely shed. No skin ring on the pedicle, or there's a skin ring on the pedicle, but no blood. This is awesome. So I know he's close. We got one side. Hopefully his other side's on the ground. But let's go ahead and take a couple pictures quick, because I love fresh pictures of shed antlers. Oh, baby. Here we go. Let's pick them up. Oh, yeah. Oh, what a stud. Way more massive than I thought he was going to be. Really heavy horn. You know, we figured this deer probably in like the, I don't know, we figured him to be on the upper 150s just because his frame is so impressive when he's looking at you. He's just got that big frame. But, oh, what a stud. Tons of mass. I mean, the mass is unbelievable. And what else is really cool is, you know, I spent a ton of time planting these food plots just for this reason. Late season hunting, finding sheds, giving deer a bunch of food in the off season. And, you know, like I was telling you before, when we have big snow cover years, lots of snow cover. The deer are condensed into small areas, so shed hunting is typically a little easier than normal. But yeah, that's awesome. All right, so I'm out doing a loop, trying to find the match to the big 8. Check this out. So I'm back where I started. Here are my tracks coming out of here. Here, 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 right there. I walked right through there. Shed. I walked right by it. So what I've been doing is basically backtracking, and every time I find a buck track, I go and I'm trying to confirm some of these bedding areas. And one of these bedding areas is in the woods, directly here behind me. What the deer are doing is watching over that food plot where I found that big antler. And I started checking some of these beds over here, the stuff that's deep down in the cover, where they've got good visibility across the swamp. And sure enough, I got a side. I don't know who it is. It could be my match. It is not a match. But it is a cool looking antler. You want to talk about a deer with a ton of potential. Look at that. Little 1.5 year old with a ton of mass, big base, fresh pedicle. This thing just popped. I don't know if we have any pictures of him or anything, but oh man, well, I think I'm really hot on these deer's trail for sure. Well, I think I'm gonna wrap it up here for today. You know, here on the home farm, I really had one target in mind, coming out here looking for the big 8, and sure enough, was able to find him. Just an absolute awesome deer. We believe him to be a 4-year-old, and with the genetics that he carries as a 5-year-old, next year, this deer is going to be an absolute stud. He may not score the highest, but as far as frame, mass, and tine length, typically these 8s that carry this genetic absolutely blow up at 5 years old. But that was absolutely icing on the cake, finding my target buck, and then a couple bonus bucks. I got a nice little 2-year-old or 1.5 year old buck, kind of has the similar genetics, you know, that big brow tine, big long G2. And then found kind of a goofy buck. I don't really know who this deer is. He's got a really large pedicle, a lot of junk coming out of the base. Looks like he obviously broke off his tine, but tons of mass, a bunch of palmation. I know this doesn't look like much, but this deer in the future could potentially be a giant. And what's cool is he's got the same little double brow tine characteristic like the buck I shot this year, which went from 125-inch 8-pointer to 160-inch 12-pointer in 1 year. So we've got the genes. Great start to the shed hunting season, and hopefully as you guys follow along, I kind of show you little tips and tricks as I'm kind of navigating through the season, looking for the sign and all the target deer, and trying to find that target for next year. But anyway, we're gonna mosey on out of here. We're gonna get to Junior's hockey game, and yeah, we're super excited. This is awesome. Shed season, baby. Gotta love it.